Between the hills, the stars, the sky, the river so clear, river so clear.
Please join us in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words this morning. These come from a young poet contest, and the credit is to Mary Elizabeth. It's called Deep Listening. Let us listen, just for a while. Let us silence our minds and open our hearts. Just for a while, let us listen from within. Listen, not to gain knowledge, not to formulate questions, rather to chance upon sacred bonds and profound wisdom. Let us not rouse the intellect, but embrace the spirit. If thoughts cloud the brain, let them pass. If words tingle on the tongue, let us breathe them away silently. Return to them later. But here in this precious time of sharing, let us listen. Let the words wash over us and seep into a still, quiet pond. Let us listen. We join Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. So Eric, if you would come forth and light our chalice, which is a symbol of the spark of life in each of us. Our chalice lighting words are by Eric Walker Wickstrom. Why we're here. Here, today, in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know, and may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way.
When I am frightened, you reassure me. When I'm uncertain, you hold my hand. Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, you still embrace me. When I am thoughtless, you understand. Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
Today's presenter is Elicia Faul, who graciously and generously gives us music almost every day, at least every Sunday, and some extra Fridays too. She is a friend and a talent. She's generous, and I said, what do I say about you? She's like, I do it all. I'm like, yes. Yes, the renaissance of the UU. So please welcome Elicia Faul.
So this is born out of a few weeks ago, the idea was planted in my mind to give a talk on this, to give a talk on communication. And then that was right before Marnie's talk on the first principle. And I thought, okay, even better, because the first principle being the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The communication piece is like the how. How do you stay in that space of respect and dignity for someone when they have different opinions, when they're being difficult, when the emotions are high? So that's what we're talking about today. The actual tools, so there's just like the 7 principles, there's probably like 6 other communication tools you could draw from. So we had to pick one. So we picked affect labeling as what we'll work with today, what we're going to use. There's other ones, and that could be future talks, like nonviolent communication. Probably 20 years ago, I was introduced to that and started playing with that. And there's internal family systems, like the different parts of you and how they communicate and how that affects your communication with others. Gabor Mate has really great work, like compassionate inquiry work that I would like to know more about too. But today, affect labeling. And affect labeling is just that you use your higher cortex reasoning to regulate, not really regulate, but label how you're feeling, the feelings that are coming up. Very simple in a way, but we'll see how it plays out. But since communication is so much nonverbal, like body language is what, 80%, right? Let's check in with the bodies. How is your body feeling this morning? How's your breath been? Where are your ears from your shoulders? Where are your shoulders from your ears? And can you bring a little more space into the spine? Everyone uncross their legs and sat up. I didn't tell you to do that. And can the breath be more in the belly? And now, how is your right index finger? How is your left big toe? How is your eyebrows? Your cheeks? Your knees? How is the space behind your heart today? And another nice deep collective breath. So just a quick short practice to bring us present to this space, into our bodies, since that is where so much communication comes from, whether you're aware of it or not, what you're expressing in those moments. Labeling to the emotions, bringing word to the emotion. To me, this experience also is like a lot poetry. Poetry takes emotion and it puts it in a language, almost its own kind of language. So I will torture you with a poem. This poem called Boundaries. The poem's titled Boundaries. The sand, the tide comes in, the line in the sand, an idea forgotten. In the distance between here and hearing a who, you over there, have you ever known love? Have you ever been taken in an unconditional embrace? The edge of the sea on the edge of the earth, slowly creeping towards land, towards a kind of rebirth. I reach a palm into the spray, connecting our fragile paths. The land of me, the sea of you, a mystery of who never stops drawing and forgetting the lines. I'd like to relay is the brain, because we all have brains, right? Back up to the brain, out of the heart. Sort of generally speaking, 3 layers of the brain. And like Ken Wilber says, include and transcend. As we're evolving, we don't just go from this to that. We are sort of like good with the what we have, and then we branch out from that, include and transcend. So you have this reptilian part of the brain that's functioning to keep you breathing and keep you safe and all those reactions. Sometimes we know that part of the brain when we're in a panic. And then there's a revolving outside of that part of the brain, the limbic system, that's like your emotions and your like reward centers, and keeping all of that in play. And then outside of that part of the brain is the cortex, like your thinking, rationalizing, think, perceive, speak, that part of the brain, cortex of the brain. And I wonder if there isn't even like a fourth part evolving that can look at the thinking, right? That's maybe hundreds of years off before it's like an actual thing in us species, as far as a species goes. But that we'll just leave that. But anyway, this affect labeling is like the limbic system, the emotional state, and the cortex above that kind of saying, okay, I see that's anger, I see that's sadness, like it's helping to manage a lower evolutionary state. Lower, but not like worse. It's just more like evolution, like a 5-year-old versus a 10-year-old versus a 14-year-old or a 30-year-old. And we kind of do that, right? Like the basic bodily functions between like 0 and 5, that's what you're working on, figuring out and managing. And then, or maybe 0 to 3, and then like 3 to 7 is like emotional states, right? Tantrums and being able to self-regulate your emotions. And then maybe at about 7, it seems to be, like with my girls, about 7 years old, something kind of turns on and they can start to focus and read and, you know, do all the sort of cognitive stuff. This kind of process of evolving and developing. But we have those pieces in us still, even if you're 30 or 40, you have the 5-year-old. And, you know, to whatever development, to whatever level you matured, and not, no one's matured perfectly, right? There's always these sort of pieces missing. So you use this evolution, use these higher levels to help work through the younger parts. For me was recognizing my control of my sort of self-talk, what was going on up here is a sort of like the factor. I can control how I'm talking to myself. Like this was a light bulb moment that it changed how everything feels and to how your emotional state is. And then you can branch that out into your communications with other people. A lot of this material, a lot of what turned me on to affect labeling was coming from Leah Dow is an acupuncturist, had an enlightenment experience, become a sound healer, and done that kind of stuff. Her partner, Doug Noll, was like a attorney lawyer turned peacemaker mediation expert. He wrote a book called something like Calming an Angry Person in 90 Seconds. You know, but give this affect labeling as like a tool, like this is how you can do that and how it works, because you're taking that limbic system part of the brain that's in that panic, reactive, and you're sort of, you know, giving it a line, a label to like, it's almost a biological thing. Like those emotions won't last longer than 90 seconds unless they're just kept being pushed. So anyhow, he has, you know, done this work and is teaching this affect labeling. And one of the things he says, this is a YouTube video you could search, look up. It's not the one that's in the chat, but it's a different one. And it says entitled How to Have a Calm Conversation with the Politically Polarized Person. Strongly held beliefs are confronted with facts that contradict those beliefs. Dopamine's released in the brain. That reinforces that belief. There's an actual biological thing going on when somebody's in that, you know, push against mode. And if you push against them, they're going to push harder. So as far as conflict, as far as like argument, how to do that? and get somewhere. Well, rule number one, stop arguing. Because you're not going to solve an emotional problem with a logical response, right? And this is an emotional problem. People are into their beliefs from a sense of security, from a sense of like, it's got to be this way or it's not okay. To ask questions. So you're not slipping into a position of resistance, trying to convince you otherwise. Find out what's going on there. You know, what's their past, what's their history, what's their experience, how does this play into their everyday life? Then step 3 is the affect labeling. So we'll go to that next here. And then step 4, validate their worth and dignity over your own. And honestly, I don't think I even got this a few weeks ago. It was like, you know, oh, I got to be in a good place. I got to deal with my trauma. And like, no, and you're in that conversation and you make their worth and dignity first, then you can go from there. You'll automatically be out of that place of like you versus them, or me versus them. So affect labeling is this implicit emotional regulation strategy that can be described as putting feelings into words. So really you ignore the words and you focus on the emotion. You listen to the emotion. That may be also listening to their body, listening to that universal language that's everybody's. And then you mirror that with a you statement. You are fill in the blank, like the children's story, all those different emotions, anger and sadness and excitement, and you're frustrated, you're embarrassed, you're whatever. And you're doing that for them, sort of on their behalf, to give them that align into their emotional sea that they might be drowning in. Like Thich Nhat Hanh uses this really beautiful language around like the seeds. We all have seeds within us. It doesn't matter what you water. You want to water the positive seeds or the negative seeds. And if our family and friends are unstable, they will also affect our consciousness. This is why it's so important to choose carefully who we spend time with. When we talk with someone who's unhappy, our store consciousness, that's store consciousness, like all the seeds, will receive the seeds of her suffering. If we aren't careful to maintain our own wholesome seeds during the conversation, her suffering will water the seeds of suffering in us, and we will feel exhausted. It's from his book, Understanding Our Mind. I think we're almost ready to kind of like take this on and play with it, and then we can have, you know, some question discussion. The review of the affect labeling, you listen, ignore the words, label the emotion in you language. So that's different than some communication stuff where you're supposed to say, I feel blah, 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 right? It's totally opposite. It might even be kind of counterintuitive, but try it. And then to connect with that, Alea Dow and Doug Noll, this link is posted in the chat I give to them guys, but you could look up I'll Bring You Soup. This is the latest thing they're doing the last couple of weeks. I'll Bring You Soup on YouTube, where they're both talking about like, how do you get in a space of being that generous, being like we all want to experience somebody who cares about us, who's going to bring us soup when we're sick. 2 by 2, this is the lab portion we're moving into. So 1-to-1, if you're willing to partner up, and then we'll practice this, and literally like a few minutes a piece. One of you is the listener, one of you is the speaker. Speaker, bring up to mind something you have been recently upset about, or maybe how you feel right now even. If you're not feeling anything in particular right now, you can bring up recent turbulence in your emotion, something you feel upset. And then listener, you get the chance to practice the affect labeling and see how that feels. Right. So switching people now, give a chance to switch roles. One person expressing what's either present for you right now in the moment or some recent upset, and the other person getting a chance to affect label practice.
But when he was talking today too, that sometimes my mind wants to connect or understand or find related issues in my life with their life. And so I come up with words that I think describe it. And I don't know, and I want your input on whether that helps, like to help somebody label it, or I've been told, no, don't tell me how I feel. So it's like, does it depend on the strength of the emotion, how fresh it is, or just stop talking and let them come to it? I mean, what's the next step with that? Because like when he was talking about a renter or a roommate, neighbors, I've felt that before. And I remember being happy that the people next door were having a good time, but I don't want to hear happy birthday at 10 o'clock or whatever at night, you know, stuff like that. So it's like, there's that conflict of happiness, but jealousy, but be quiet or whatever. So it's like, should we label it for them, or should we just lead them to the labels? Advice?
Yeah. Well, we can keep going, or I can respond to that. Because like Alea Dow has a really strong thing she says over and over again, like about staying in your own space. Like don't take responsibility for other people's emotions or their regulation of their emotions. Like you're modeling this because this is what you do in yourself also. This is what you do for yourself and your own emotions. So it just becomes natural then. And in modeling that, then they can learn too. It's not like you're doing anything for them. Experience is empathy, right? You're experiencing empathy. You feel what they're feeling.
I think I am.
And so it's like the analogy of if you're seeing someone's drowning, and you know, to what extent do you know how to swim that you're going to go rescue them, or are you going to give them a rope or give them a line so that you can pull them in? Like you don't want to be in the upset chaos yourself. Then you're just both in the upset and the chaos, right? And the emotions. You want to use that higher cognitive functioning to like give them something and pull them in. And so that the labeling of it, saying, oh, you're upset, oh, is a kind of giving them a line they can hang on to, like, oh, I'm upset. And they immediately can start to calm down because it's something to kind of stand on.
Sometimes you can say, you sound like you are jealous. Is that true? Or you sound like you're angry. Is that true? And then that gives the person who's showing the emotion a chance to think, is that exactly the word I would use to describe what I'm feeling? And then that helps Eric decide, is that what I'm feeling? And then when you put three words together, you sound like you're feeling this, that, and that. Then Eric can say, yes, I'm feeling the second word you mentioned, but I'm not the third word. I'm feeling more like this, that, and that. So you're sort of helping him, but you're not completely, and you're not telling him the story of your neighbors next door. So that kind of helps, yeah.
Labeling it doesn't necessarily yet make us feel better. Just knowing I'm upset doesn't tell me how to deal with this issue.
Right, how to label it without expectation,
well,
how to say, I'm not doing this to get you to calm down, but I'm doing this to give you comfort, to give you love, and to give you a container for this experience that's maybe overwhelming right now.
Yeah, because I believe,
I believe you're fine. I know you're fine. I know you've got this. Like the kind of love to each other.
Okay, we'll let you lead then. Take us to the next step.
Take you to the next step. Well, the next step is just repeat as necessary. And current to what's not new now, like as it can change, like, and then eventually, once you experience this sort of a transformation, a calming down, and you experience that, you see the potential of something so simple. You can. It's like a light bulb moment. And it's good what you said, Karen Faye, but some of these other communication things can be more complicated than necessary, versus saying you're blah, 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 versus saying, I see you're feeling da, 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 or getting into that kind of therapist bang. Or it sounds like, I mean, it's good. Like you can say, it sounds like you're da da da. The thing is, if someone's in a state of panic, if someone's in a state of upset, almost can't respond to anything that's too much. It can very quickly become too much. So you really, really like pare it down to the bare bones and give them just that simple line. And that you can know whether you're doing it that way or not based on their reaction. Because if they calm down, okay, you did it. If they don't calm down and they're like, no, I said but that's fine too. That's another step in the direction. And that's why you don't have to worry about whether you get it wrong, because they're going to tell you. If you get it wrong, they'll tell you. And then, but they'll say, no, I'm this, I'm sad, right? They just naturally will. And then you can go that direction with it. You're not their therapist. You don't have to, whatever, but that's how it works, how it leads you into a place of calm, actually connecting. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear